There wasn't a sound. If Snipe still howled, he couldn't be heard from here. If Nick still hammered and swore, then the noise he made was lost in the night. What if they're dead, brother? The voice crept into his head. What if old Nick's suffocating down there in the hold? What if Snipe strangled himself on that rope? He sat up, drenched with cold sweat. What if you've killed them? He trusted himself to stand up. There wasn't a sound. He whistled softly for the dog, who padded back through the hedge to him, ran up, and then danced away. He was alone again, and this time it was the silence that made him afraid. He crawled into the hedge, hoping to sleep, but the silence boomed around him. Now you've done it, the little voice whispered. You've left your master to suffocate, and you've strangled his dog on the rope. You've killed them both, you have. Now you're in for it, Jim. Jim woke to the sound of horses, thudding of hooves that made the earth shake. He ran to the edge of this field and scrambled through the thickness of trees till he came to a wide clearing in another field. There must have been about 20 or more horses being exercised all in a ring. In the centre of the ring, a man stood with a whip, lashing the ground with it and shouting out commands which made the horses stop, rear, turn, and trot in the other direction. They were nothing like the work horses that Jim had been seen pulling carriages, or Lame Betsy's bony old knock-knee dairy horse. These horses were powerful and lively, high-stepping, like dancers. At the other end of the field was a monster tent. Men and children were shouting and laughing loud, hauling on the ropes to pull it upright. The tent was like a huge green bird that couldn't sit still, and all around the sides of the field were vans, painted in bright colours. The biggest of them had words painted on them, and Jim knew for sure that they would say Giuglini's Champion Circus. The van had a green door with a brass knocker and cabin windows with muslin curtains and a funnel at the back with smoke curling from it. From the back window, a woman gazed out at him as if she were daydreaming, not really noticing him at all. Jim guessed that this would be Madame Giuglini herself. He remembered how her children had danced and waved to him from the riverbank, and instinctively he put up his hand to feel for the rope that had tied him round the neck. But he was free of that, forever, he hoped. A wonderful smell of cooking arose from the van. Jim couldn't remember when he had last eaten. Whenever it was, it had only been the scraps from Grimy Nick's pockets. As Jim watched the women disappeared and was replaced by 2 small children, Jim recognised them as the 2 younger ones who had been carried on their parents' shoulders that day. They caught sight of him and pointed at him, laughing. The woman opened the door to the van. The children squirmed on the step and in front of her and giggled at Jim. "Please, ma'am," Jim begged. If he hadn't been so hungry, he wouldn't have run back into the trees to hide, but the smell of food was stronger and sweeter than ever. He waved his hands to where the men were heaving and straining at the tent ropes. "I've come for a job, if you'll give me one," he faltered. Memories of Nick came floating to him. What have I done? He thought. What happened to Nick? Immediately, hunger chased the thoughts away. Eat first, then think. That was best. "I'll help to put up the tent, I'll muck out the horses, and I'll clean 'em bright and smart, and I don't want money, missus." "Don't want money?" Madame Giuglini frowned down at him. "I've never heard that before." "If you'll feed me, missus," Jim said, all his confidence gone, "I'll do anything." He gazed at the little van, and his old longing rose up in him again. How good must it be to live in this green van, with the shining brass knocker on the door, and the chimney curling out smoke. He dug his hands deep in his pockets. There was nothing more he could say. A boy came running across the field to the caravan. He stopped short, staring at Jim. Madame Juglini went back up the steps. "Antonio, you bring the boy inside." Jim followed the boy Antonio into the van and gazed round the bright cushions and curtains, at the small fire crackling in its burner, and at all the neat shiny fittings. He had never seen anything that looked so much like a home. He was conscious now of his filthy hands and broken blackened nails and the tattered state of his clothes. Madame Juglini gave him some food and watched him while he ate. She knew the white marks round his eyes for what they were. She sighed. "We have a busy day. We have a costume to make for the strongest man in the universe. The last strongest man ran away with a flying lady and took his loincloth with him." Her children giggled. "You don't sew, I suppose?" she asked Jim. Jim could have told her about the weeks he'd spent making sacks in the workhouse, but he daren't, in case it was a trick question. He shrugged. "I might be able to," he said. The small children laughed at him. Mr. Juglini came in, rubbing his hands together, and tousled Jim's hair as if he was quite used to seeing him sitting at his table. A cloud of black dust rose from Jim's head, and Antonio pretended to dodge away from him, coughing. "The boy says he wants a job," his wife said. Mr. Juglini sat down opposite Jim and stared at him. Then he leaned towards him. "Now, tell me true," he asked. "Have you run away from home?" His black eyes seemed to burn right inside Jim's. Jim felt the scorch of tears and tried to rub them away. "I used to live on a coal lighter," he said. I think the lighter man might have died, sir. I think he might have got trapped. I did." Madame Juglini and her husband exchanged glances. "You can whiten the harnesses with Antonio. There's a job. Let's see how well he does it." Juglini smoothed his moustaches and went quickly out to the van. Jim gazed after him, so many words tumbling about in his head that he couldn't find a single one to say. By midday, the huge tent was up, and sawdust had been scattered in its ring. Madame Juglini was away for the most of the day, but came back as dust, just as the lanterns were lit around the field, hanging from trees like ripe orange fruit. The tent glowed with yellow gaslight. Jim and Antonio stood by the gates of the fields, beating drums, and the circus band paraded round the tent, bugles and trumpets blurring into the twilight. Bats skittered over their heads like black crags. Up the lane came a rumbling of wheels, and the children of the circus cheered. "The people are coming! The people are coming!" At the door flap of the tent, Madame Juglini was taking money and shouting, roll up, for the greatest show on earth. See the flying horses of Araby. See Madame Bombardini as she flies through the air. See the strongest man in the universe." Jim and Antonio ran inside the tent and wriggled underneath the tiers of benches. They squatted there, arms folded beneath the drumming feet of the impatient audience. Bits of orange peel and nutshells showered down on them. Antonio smiled at Jim. It would all be all right now. Everything would be all right. Tonight, Jim would sleep in the green caravan with the brass door knocker, and tomorrow he would help to take down the big tent with the men and the children. He would march in the procession with his drum. Roll up, roll up. He closed his eyes, letting the music and the voices swirl around him. Antonio nudged him. The drums started up a booming roll. The crowd roared. Mr. Juglini ran into the ring and cracked his whip for silence. The band blazed, and into the ring ran the horses. The beautiful, powerful horses, scudding and shining, the thundering, billowing horses. Juglini cracked his whip again, and the horses reared onto their back legs and into the circle. Another horse galloped, with a woman standing on the saddle, her muslin skirts tucked up high. As the crowd cheered, she leaned right back, her arms outstretched, and somersaulted. 1, 2, 3, Juglini shouted. 4, 5, 6, The crowd roared. Over she went, and over again, and came up each time smiling and proud. Jim cheered and clapped. He wanted to stand up and shout, "Hooray for Juglini's circus!" It was then, as the horses turned with a swish of their tail and a prancing of long legs, that Jim saw the thing he thought he'd never see again in his life. The entrance flap of the tent was lifted up briefly. He could just make out the face of Madame Juglini peering and anxious. He saw her hand stretched up to receive a coin, and next to hers, like a spectre, another face, looming in the glow of a lantern, a blackened face, and square, with hair like a slipping thatch, and eyes that bulged through like lamps.